Hey everyone, my name is Sarah Mentz, and today we're going to be covering cardiovascular disease, on what it is, what are some risk factors that influence it, and how we can help prevent it and spread awareness. So, what is cardiovascular disease? Cardiovascular disease is disorders in your heart and your blood vessels. It can be found in many different forms, such as like heart valve problems, arrhythmias, heart attacks, strokes, coronary heart disease, and heart failures. CVD is the number one leading cause of death globally, and in 2019 there were roughly 17.9 million deaths from cardiovascular disease, which is about 32% of global deaths within that year. And out of that 17 million, roughly a third of people who died from cardiovascular disease related illnesses were under the age of 70. So, who is affected by cardiovascular disease? The answer is anybody and everybody. Even though this tends to be more prevalent in people over the age of 50 and most common in men, if you look at the picture below, it shows that this is the number one leading cause of death for both men and women in the United States. Roughly each year, 647,000 Americans die from heart disease. What I found interesting in these numbers was that heart disease and stroke, that 80% of these cases are preventable, meaning that we have the availability and the option to try to reduce our risk of cardiovascular-related disease deaths. So a big question is, what causes cardiovascular disease? So there are two different types of factors. We have preventable factors and non-preventable factors. Some preventable factors would include your activity level, your health, and possibly your environment. So somebody who has poor eating habits, lives a more sedentary lifestyle, they are more likely to experience CVD within their life. Some other factors of health that influence cardiovascular disease would be high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, obesity, as well as excessive drinking and smoking. So something that you cannot prevent would be your family history, your ethnicity, and your race. Somebody who has a family history of cardiovascular disease is more likely to experience it themselves, but we can look at those preventable factors, such as like high blood pressure or high cholesterol, diabetes. We can look at those and try to prevent and improve those overall to help reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. But like I said, cardiovascular disease, it can affect anybody and everybody, but we tend to see higher rates of cardiovascular disease in African Americans, as well as American Indians and Hispanics. Both those two have a higher chance of getting diabetes than whites, but diabetes is a leading factor that can help influence cardiovascular disease. And lastly, looking at our environment. So if you're living somewhere with poor air quality, that can put stress on your body. And then we tend to see higher rates of CVD incidents during like the hot summer months. Putting that stress and the pressure on our bodies helps strains it and can increase the risk of like heart attacks, strokes, things like that. And then looking at our socioeconomic status. So do we have the availability to healthy foods, to exercise equipment, as well as main thing, having access to doctors to help get these screenings and kind of get an understanding of where you are with cardiovascular disease. So like I mentioned in the previous slide, talking about preventable risk factors. So investing in our health is a major key to this because cardiovascular disease does not stop. You have to remain proactive to have this monitoring necessary to help reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. So going through your proactive screenings, monitoring your nutrition, increasing activity levels, monitoring your weight, stopping smoking, and improving sleeping habits, you have to continue these things in order to help reduce and control cardiovascular disease. So a key thing with monitoring cardiovascular disease is being proactive and spreading awareness. So having your community groups and fundraisers, this can help build support groups, get the community together in different exercise activities, supporting your family, so providing these healthy snacks and meals, keeping them active and keeping yourself active. And then, like I've mentioned, how family history, that is something that we cannot control when it comes to cardiovascular disease, but having a journal with any knowledge that you have of it, that can be beneficial for anybody within your family to kind of see where they fall on what their risk may be of having cardiovascular disease. Community education and social media. These are very important because you can help provide information to the community about cardiovascular disease. Start with support pages, and then maybe even having like free clinics or prevention screening, stuff like that can help people have access to this as well. And please feel free to reach out with any comments, questions, or concerns. Thank you.